1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, c'est un test, je ferme. It's my greatest pleasure and honor to welcome you all and to welcome Beverly and Etienne Wenger-Trayner. I read Etienne's books on communities of practice many, many years ago, and I was part of a team writing a book which forward was written was Etienne a few years ago. And I discovered recently that Beverly and I, myself, had some common interest, that is intercultural communities of practice. And I give you the floor, Beverly and Etienne, to introduce yourselves. So Beverly, if you can unmute your phone and introduce yourself in a few words, and then we'll go to the next clockwise to Etienne and Laura, Elena, Rodrigo, Johannes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm Bev Wenger-Trayner, and I mean, my interest in intercultural stuff actually is also because I am intercultural. I was born in Kenya. I lived for 10 years in UK. I lived in Portugal for 30 years. I lived in the US for 10 years. But that's sort of
okay. Joachim,
background.
Thank you. Etienne, your turn.
Okay, so I'm Etienne, and I'm married to Bev. So we work together and we live together. Yeah, we have recently sort of taking the work on community of practice to a new level. And yeah, this is a very interesting collaboration, and we will talk about it today.
Okay, thank you. Laura, your turn.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm working at Digital Mindset, which is a small company from Germany, and we are helping companies to get digital and also to take the employees with us to improve in their abilities to be digital. And I'm here with Sandra at the Dresden International University.
Okay. So then Sandra, if you like. Sandra, your turn.
Okay, my name is Sandra, and I'm a digital manager of the Dresden International University. So I'm interested in learning and digital learning. And I'm so excited to see you all here. Thank you for this opportunity. And here's another one who is from the DIU, the Joachim.
Joachim, yes.
Yeah.
Joachim, you get the mic soon. Anke, your turn.
Yeah, hi, my name is Anke. I'm an adult facilitator. And right now I'm reading your book, Etienne and Beverly, Learning to Make a Difference. And I'm so happy to hear more from you. I'm on page 50, I think so. So I love it. And for me, it's a very good theory to push me to another level. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Anke. Johannes, thanks for writing a good blog and blog article on the book.
Yeah, thank you. Very glad to be here because I read your book, a couple of months ago now, I think, and it was a book which I wanted to note down nearly everything I read, and it was really inspiring because it's so hands-on on the one hand and creates a picture of what learning is about in groups at the other hand. So very glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Johannes. Joachim, your turn.
Yeah, hello, my name is Joachim. I work also for Dresden International University. Dresden International University is a university which has its focus on further education. So we have not normally young students, we have more adult students. So we are very close to corporate learning. And I'm also member of the core team of corporate learning and member of CLC 0711.
Stuttgart.
Stuttgart, yeah, okay.
Thank you, Joachim. Armin?
I'm Amin, and I have my own company, Tiki Taka. It's called. I try to learn corporates and leaders to play Tiki Taka, and it's all about learning and value creating. So I'm very curious what I will learn here. So thank you for inviting me.
Alina, can you hear us? Alina, unmute you.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yes, I can. I apologize because there's a little bit of noise. Here we were riding on the highway and we decided to stop so we can follow this interview. So I'm very happy to be here and to be able to learn more about this learning and about community. I'm really into social learning. I believe in the power of the community. And I'm also very interested in everything that is multicultural. And I love podcast and video.
Thank you, Elena. Rodrigo, your turn.
Yeah, so I'm here with Elena, so we both stopped at the same time. I'm passionate about learning. I'm a passionate learner myself and love intercultural environments as well. So I'm really looking forward to this.
So thank you, Rodrigo. It seems that Elena has gone. So we are going to follow the framework, the 8 values cycles as the entry to our conversation. So I will share my PowerPoint with you. And you should be seeing this PowerPoint. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
It's okay. Thank you, Joachim. What I suggest is we go through the steps: immediate value, potential value, applied value, realized value, and we try to go through the 8 steps. We have about 4 minutes for each step. And what I'd like to do is first give the floor to Etienne and Beverly, and that they tell us in a short, very short sentence, what is immediate value, and give us an example. And then I'd like us to discuss this value in the things we have been experiencing in the last minutes, I would say, or days or hours in the CLT 21 camp. That's the method I'd like to follow. So Etienne or Beverly, please tell us in 2 sentences what is the meaning of immediate value in the framework.
So I guess you could quickly say, in some sense, it's not technical, but it's like your feelings. How are you in this space? How do you feel about it? Do you feel connected? Do you feel happy? Do you feel sad? Do you feel challenged? All right. So it's your immediate feelings about being in a space.
So the space you are talking about is the social learning space. Okay, the subject of the book. Okay,
yeah, that's right.
Okay,
that's right.
Etienne, could you give us a short definition of what is a social learning space according to you?
So, a social learning space is a moment of social interaction that becomes a container for some mutual learning. And we define it along 3 dimensions. The fact that people are in that space because they want to make a difference. They engage in that space by putting forward the uncertainty they have about how to make that difference. And the third element is that they really pay attention to the response that they get when they engage their uncertainty. And so for us, this becomes kind of a definition of social learning.
Okay. Anyone from Germany who could give us an input on what we call in Germany learning ecosystems? Anyone feels like commenting on the social learning space and the concept of learning ecosystem? Any voice? You unmute and you just talk. So now, if I'd like us to discuss a little bit the immediate value of the experience, the feeling. What did we get so far during corporate learning camp 21? Anyone who would like to share an experience? We took part to sessions this morning or this afternoon. Sandra, maybe you had a session this morning and one this afternoon, or Elena, would you take the mic and tell us about some immediate value, something you gained, some emotions? Elena?
Yes, sure. I cannot see. Okay, I don't know if you can see me, but I apologize again for the noise. But yeah, it was okay, cool. Yeah, it was a very nice experience to have all this input from all the people and working together, people who don't know each other, who are not necessarily aligned, and then they just get together and get some bright ideas, and then playing along with the different steps that we follow. And it was very nice to see that we could produce something together in a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now let's move to potential value. Etienne, would you care to define potential value in your own words?
So for us, potential value emerges out of immediate value, that the kind of trust that is created when there is good immediate value gives rise to conversation, exchanges, ideas, a new solution, a new relationship, increased confidence or decreased confidence. And that for us is what we call potential value. We don't know
actually
yet.
Elena actually put it very nicely. She said what we produce together.
Mm-hmm.
It was very nice to see what we produce together. Mm-hmm. And that's what potential value is what we produce together as a result of being together.
And it's important to call it, for us to call it potential value and not call it knowledge. First, because we would say that until it has made a difference in practice, we cannot call it knowledge. And we would say that things like self-confidence can be potential value, but they are not usually something called knowledge. So if by talking with others, you gain some confidence that, oh yeah, no, what I'm doing is good, that's also value that can come out, the potential value that had come out of a social learning space.
Okay, thank you. Anyone here in Germany, on the road, or somewhere else, having something to share about potential value of CLC 21 so far? Joachim, hättest du was zu sagen?
Yeah, sure, but I need some time. No.
I know you can improvise.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is that we use the lessons learned from the pandemic situation to expand the learning space and to see this really as a new opportunity, not falling back to the old patterns we had in the past, and taking this really as an opportunity for going new ways in learning.
Yes, thank you. Maybe Johannes, could you add your grain of salt to potential value for you of taking part to this learning camp or bar camp?
Well, maybe one thing in the background today, a couple of new colleagues are with me from my company, and I think it's a huge opportunity for them to see what's out there in the world of corporate learning and not stuck too deep inside only the corporate universe.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So anyone wanting to add something about potential value, you just unmute your mic and you say, hello, I'd like to say something about that. Okay?
Yeah, just
Rodrigo.
a short comment. Yeah, going back to what Elena and Beverly said both. So this morning we had a great experience on a collaborative podcast session animated by Elena. And if I understand correctly, the idea of potential value, there we had a lot of great people with a lot of knowledge, but we were not learning until we started sharing our feedbacks and sharing our experience. And then the potential knowledge actually got understood and shared, and everyone learned from it.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Now, someone is getting in. We'll move to applied value. Beverly, I give you the floor this time.
Okay, so say you pick up ideas like how to do things differently in COVID, right? And you hear people's experiences of what they've done to change things. And then you go back to your own company, to your own organization, and you say, they did that. And yeah, no, here's this idea coming up, and I should let go of the fact that I think this is really important because things have changed now. So I've got to change. I've got to be more open. That would be applied value. You change the way that you do things because of what you heard, because of the ideas that you heard, because of any new tool that somebody suggested, because of some experience that somebody said that worked for them, or an experience that somebody said didn't work for them. But whatever happens, when you get back to your context, you change the way you do things because of what you heard in that time. So that is what we call applied value. That's what you do with it.
Etienne, could you give us a few examples in detail of the way we apply something we learned in the social learning space? Just concrete examples to.
Well, I mean, in the book, we give the concrete example of this woman who went to India, learned about a new strategy, and then came back to a very different context in Bhutan, where they were just the beginning of democracy. India had a long history in democracy. It was much more rural and so on and so forth. So she had gotten some ideas from that trip to India, but when she came back, she had to be very creative. So the danger of the term applied, it seems like it's an implementation, but in fact, it's a very creative process of taking an idea and reconstructing it in a new practice. So from a learning perspective, there is as much learning in applying something as there is in getting the idea in the first place.
And we should be clear that the social learning space, here we're talking, depending on where you see the social learning space, but we're talking about outside. It's not that you apply it inside, although you may with your imagination, but I mean, it's what you do when you leave the space of the people that you're talking to. Okay. But that space outside also becomes part of your social learning space because that's where you're doing as much of the learning as you are in. So it's not just contained within the space of your group.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see, often in many circumstances, learning ends at potential. You know, we give people ideas, we give them theory, we make a test to make sure it has made it into their heads, and the learning is finished, and the rest is life. For us, learning is not finished. Learning continues after potential.
Okay. Anyone seeing an application of immediate application of what we are learning now with Etienne and Beverly? And you refer to this Bhutan story, which is a red thread throughout the book and helps us understanding and finally what you mean at each stage or cycle, which is very precious. Anyone having an idea? I will apply this when I get back home in my company. Who wants to take the floor? Or we move to the next cycle at high speed, 4 minutes a cycle.
So, I can say something.
Yeah, Joachim. Thank you.
We here live in a more academic environment, but also in an academic environment, the different disciplines gain a lot of new ideas and competences during the pandemic, how to learn, how to run courses, how to do social learning, how to collaborate. And we started now an activity where the different disciplines from mechanical engineering, language science, management science came together and contribute their own developments, their own ideas, and make an exchange with other disciplines, academic disciplines, to get a real insight what they are doing and use the knowledge also from the other disciplines. I think this is the kind, if I understood it right, from your applied bubble.
Thank you, Joachim. Let's move to realized value as defined as the result. Beverly, you have the mic.
So realized value is what happens when you put it into practice. That's all very good. You know, you have but then what happens as a result? Right. And that was, you know, it may be that it works, it doesn't work. It may be that you have to adapt it a bit more. It may be that you have to revisit the idea. But anyway, what happens when you change what you do? And that's what realized value is.
Okay.
And that,
Sorry. Go on.
I was going to say that there's small things. One is like little things. You know, I got a bit more confidence, and then that meant that I said this because I was speaking on behalf of. Because I knew that other people felt the same. And so that then got my boss to listen to me. So that's a sort of small thing that happened. But then there are big things, like I made a difference in the world. You know, I something, and so realized value may be an accumulation of lots of applied value, but it's, I managed to get more people, spending time on working on this, which saved us $1 million, you know. So it could be something big and it can be something small, but realized value is the effect of what you do, even if it's a cumulative effect of lots of small things.
And I think it's also important to specify that in all these cycles, value can be positive or negative. Okay, so it could be that by applying an idea that you got in a social learning space, you create a total disaster, you know? So we should not assume that value is always positive, you know? And that's true for immediate. Sometimes, you know, there is a lot of tension, you know, in a space, you know? But if you view it as a learning flow, then a negative value at one cycle does not necessarily mean negative value across, you know? So if an idea that is given to you turns out to be a disaster, it's really important to bring that back to the space so that people can learn from it. But that duality of value being always positive or negative is really an important part of the theory.
Yes. Anke, would you have anything to say about the result of some learning? And this is the occasion just to stress the point about making a difference, the way you define making a difference, Etienne and Beverly. It hasn't to be big. Anke?
I'm thinking it's like when I started, I said that your theory is something that pushes me. And the result, I'm just in the process of learning and understanding your view of it. But a result is that I have this feeling. You take me with you in a space where my thinking about learning and how to create some concepts, that I am thinking all the time, oh yes. So this is my result in the moment. Thank you for these ideas and how to say it. My English is so rusty. To
Say it in German.
Okay. Das ist, ihr differenziert es so aus, dass ich klarer sehe, was auch meine Gedanken sind. Und dafür großes Dankeschön.
Vielen Dank.
Yeah.
Do we need to translate it to you back, Etienne?
Julius,
I'll try. It makes distinctions that allow me to clarify my own thinking about the things that I do.
Yes, I think you got it perfectly.
Thank you very much. You're right.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I'd like to move to cycle enabling, which I think is a very, very important cycle. Maybe not so taken into account when large companies think about learning, e-learning. So, Beverly, what do you understand when you talk about enabling value?
Well, enabling value is, I mean, it comes in very different forms in different places. For some people, it's a secretariat. Other people, it's a social learning team. Other people, it's but I mean, it's what enables people to get that kind of value. So it may be very logistical enabling, like how do I set up the meetings? Because if you're members of a social learning space, you don't want to spend all your time doing bureaucracy and finding out how much time should people spend, what time is a good time for everybody, who should provide the donuts, what room should we meet in. If you do all that, it can be a bit tiresome. So you have some people to do that. That's for logistics. But it can also be, you know, people helping to coach the people in the space as to how to curate the information that they're getting and the good ideas that are coming. And then, yeah, putting up a website or a blog or thinking about all those things that are going to enable the potential value. It may be applied value. It may be, if somebody's a sophisticated enabling team, then they may be talking to the bosses of the members of the social learning space and saying, you know, you do realize that this person is doing this and it takes them 3 hours a week, not the 1 hour that they've been assigned to do. So, you know, there's a lot of, so that it gives them more time to do things, you know, and this is going to be good at work, and then they can present their stuff in the meeting. So there's enabling can happen at any of those one value cycles, or all of them, depending on what the budget is and how big the team is, but it's enabling the value to be produced in those inner cycles.
Anyone whose voice we haven't heard so far would like to comment on enabling as it was understood? Explain, sorry, Bev. So then.
But what about you, Christian? As
yes.
a learning coach, you must be a professional enabler, no?
Yes, I'm quite some kind of, and I have a few examples around, and some in this space at the moment who know what we talk about when we talk about enabling, and the dimension of facilitation. Facilitation of work during any, let's say, co-development session or is enabling activity. But I was expecting expecting, for example, some inputs from anyone among us who has not yet taken the mic, the floor. Whose voice hasn't been heard? We move to the opposite value. Now we have 15 minutes left. So let's move to yes.
It's less, it's actually strategic value is less than the opposite. It's more like the complementary. So the complementary is the
opposite on the slide, sorry.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. But the stakeholders, so the stakeholders are people who have an interest in the learning that comes out of the community. So it may be bosses, it may be senior management, but it may be clients at the end, right? But what is the quality of conversations that you have with those people? And I say it's connected to enabling because very often enabling helps to set up those strategic conversations. But we have found that many social learning spaces crumble because they don't have strategic conversations with their stakeholders. What is it that you're expecting? What message do we need to give to you to assure you that this is going to be a long-term project rather than a short-term results? You know, whatever the strategic conversation that needs to be had. But strategic conversations need to be had with your different stakeholders. And so that is something else that it enhances the learning because then you get the feedback and the input from your stakeholders, but also it is a way to make sure that the social learning space doesn't crumble because you're not having those conversations.
Thank you.
Can I raise a question?
Yeah.
Anyone with a question on?
From which step in the value creation cycle are strategic conversation necessary? Before it, in a parallel, or at certain stages?
So I think it really depends on the intentionality of the space. You know, there are lots of social learning spaces that have very little strategic conversations. Like if you have a good conversation around the dinner table, you could create a social learning space where the social learning space itself does not engage with stakeholders, but when we help develop a more formal social learning space, then it's very important to have some conversations in the beginning so that the stakeholders don't, especially for instance, if it's top management, doesn't prevent you from actually making the difference you want to make. Like for instance, we were talking to some people in a community college, and they had an pedagogical innovation community. And somebody says, well, but if I try something new in my class and I'm being evaluated once a year and I don't know when the evaluation comes, if I'm trying something new, that's not a good time for me if I'm being evaluated. So they had to talk to the management of the school to make sure that the management was in connection, in collaboration with the community when they were evaluating a member of the community. See what I mean? So they created a strategic context in which the work of the community, which was pedagogical innovation, was able to actually make a difference. Because they could have great conversations about pedagogical innovation, but if they are afraid to do it in their classroom because of the evaluation, then it doesn't make any difference.
So there's no clean answer to that question, unfortunately. Part of the strategic thinking is, when do we need these conversations? If we're a subversive type of social learning space, it may be that we need to wait till we've got a few accomplishments under our belt and we've developed a bit of a strategic voice, and then we will have these strategic conversations. Or it may be, wow, let's see what we can have now right at the beginning, you know. So there is no clean answer, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Julius, you raised your hand. You have the mic now.
Yes, thank you very much, Christian. Strategic conversation in my experience always involved the goal setting, and then often also like measuring goals and stuff like that. And I'm curious because in social learning spaces, often we as enabler or like facilitator of social learning spaces, we kind of have control until the potential, no? Or like this is like from my experience, what people do with their with what they share there and how they apply it and what kind of is the result is mostly, for my experience, out of my hands and also out of my sight. So can you, I don't know, have
Well,
some? Did you also see that? Yeah,
I think that's really a
Absolutely.
mistake. That's really a mistake because, well, I think it depends how durable the social learning space you are facilitating is. But if your social learning space is durable and sustained over time, then it is very important for you as a facilitator to make sure that you bring those stories back to about what people have done. So what we've noticed is that people think to have a very linear view of learning, but we think learning is a loop. It has to be viewed as a loop. And so I think in a social learning space, one of the facilitators' most important enabling action is to make sure that maybe just at the beginning of a meeting to say, okay, what have you heard so far in this group, in this community, in this class, and what have you done with it, and what difference has it made or not made, so that it comes back, to make sure that it's not that you want to control it, but you want to make sure it comes back.
And to have a stew of stories under your belt, because it may be that your evaluation looks at how many members show up, for example, how many postings there are. I don't know what they do, but that would be your.
That's what we use, but it's not. That doesn't mean
right.
anything.
That's right. So that's immediate. Right. So that's immediate value, and then also you have to say how many documents you produced or tools, how many downloads there were. So that would be a measure of potential value. So being pragmatic, and if you're trying to push that space out, you'd say, okay, here, guys, there's the information for that. But also, here are a few stories of what happened as a result of this. Here's somebody who did this with that. This document was downloaded X amount of times, but we've got a number of stories from people who downloaded that document. And this is what they did with it. And this is the difference they made. 2 stories to go with your numbers. And you add it in, if you've got the space, into your report to squeeze it out, because you always have to be a little pragmatic about the reports that you have to write, but try and add it in. Yeah.
Thank you, Beverly. We'll move to orienting in 2 or 3 minutes. Orienting value. This would you like to define it?
Or orienting value and transformative value both have to do with the broader context. Okay, so orienting value is really the degree to which a social learning space makes sure that they are connected to relevant places in the broader landscape. It could be as simple as doing a Google search. Has anybody done something about that? Or it could be as complex as creating an alliance with some other group doing some work. So orienting really has to do with bringing the broader landscape into the learning of the community.
Thank you. Let's move to the next one so that we can complete the session on time. There is a rule here. We have to stop at the given time because there's something next starting just after that. And transformative value, which is the complementary, I would say. And here you have things about the evaluation, I think, if I remember well, the structure of the activity of the cycle. Bev, Beverly.
About the evaluation, was it? Yeah, I understood, right? Oh, transformative. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Transformative. So transformative is the broader effect that you had without it being necessarily the one that you expected. So it may be that for people within it, on an internal level, it may be that the people within the space, you know, become strengthened as a mother or a father, you know, having done X, which you were never expecting. Okay, so, you know, becoming more powerful or learning to make a difference and talk to your boss in this way has made you more powerful as a woman or as a person. Right? So it could be transformative in terms of you and your identity, or it could be transformative in terms of the culture. So we managed to make something happen, and actually that was way beyond what we were trying to do in a social learning space. That's actually now transformed the culture or the culture of our organization, or it's transformed something which is beyond us and our social learning space. So it's kind of slightly unexpected.
Thank you. Any question about this transformative value coming from us? We'll still have a few minutes, and I'd like to go back to the main session without the PowerPoint. May I share something with you?
Mm-hmm.
I had a very, very powerful training during this summer, and this powerful training brought me to study the subject of this implementation of this model in England with studies. And what they found out, that the training model had little impact on the pupils, but a huge impact on the teachers who became really transformative in the institution, took sides and expressed their wills in a much stronger way. And just going through the training plus reading about the method gave me this insight about this transformation it made.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks a lot.
I think it was very important to include it in the model, because it's often not included in evaluation processes, because evaluation processes often proceed from specific predefined goals.
Thank you. Now I stop sharing my screen, and we'll come together again for a word of conclusion. Thank you all for being here, and I'd like to finish with immediate value to you, Etienne and Beverly, of being there with us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, for us, it's always inspiring to see that people, like Anke was saying, you know, if somebody says, you know, it helps me clarify what I'm doing, this is really a very immediate value, I can tell you that, because this is what we want to do, you know. It's not like what we're saying in this book is nothing new, you know. I mean, it's nothing that nobody knows, but to give a language to what people already know is often transformative in the way that it allows you to become more intentional.
Thank you, Etienne. Beverly? Your last one?
Right, my hidden immediate value is actually some of the questions that Christian asked us that he said he was going to ask, but he never asked. But it got me thinking. And I thought, oh yeah. And also, how does this apply then to this call, etc. So yeah.
Thank you. I knew this questions could be a little hard to answer within the framework of the 45 minutes. So that's the reason why I didn't ask them. I'm sorry about that, but I want to thank you all. We have 20 seconds left before closing the meeting. Thank you
Thank you.
for being there.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Nice to see you here.
Yeah.
See you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Next
you.
From my
year.
heart.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Anke. Thank you, Julius, Elena, Rodrigo, Johannes.
Elena.
And
Yeah.
ciao.
All the best
Okay.
for what you're doing.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you. Ciao. Ciao, Julius.
I can't find the button now.
Okay, ciao.